Thank you. President Josue, Ambassador Suresh Reddy, uh, dear colleagues, distinguished corporate representatives, ladies and gentlemen. Let me say, first of all, what a great pleasure it is for me to visit FIESP, to meet you, President, and your members. And Ambassador told me that, if you really want to meet business in Latin America in a single room, this is where you should be coming. I'm very glad I did. Now, my visit takes place in what is actually a milestone year for both of us. In India, it is the 75th year of our independence. We're finishing 75. For you in Brazil, it's 200 years of your independence. I congratulate you on this milestone. And I think at this time, perhaps as we look at how to build our relationship, in my view, really the lasting relationships are those where there's a substantive business content. Because when there is business, you can have the ups and downs of politics, you can have other problems, but business is like a ballast in a ship. It really keeps the ship very steady. Therefore, as a minister today, as a diplomat earlier, it's always been my endeavor to promote business at the core of any relationship. Now, it's obviously for me been very interesting, a great pleasure to listen to WEG, to Embraer, to Unica. And I think you have three very good examples of what is really possible between our countries. And there could be more. I do feel today that the belief that somewhere distance was a very major obstacle in this day and age of globalization and technology, I think we cannot continue with that old assumption. And the fact that we are today your fifth largest trade partner, and we will obviously make a push to improve that ranking. It tells you really how much is doable. Now, the comparative description I give people is we in India, our exports is a little bit less than $700 billion a year. If I look at our major trade accounts, the big hubs, we have 5 hubs which are in where the annual trade is in excess of $100 billion, which is obviously the European Union, North America with US at the core, China, ASEAN, and the Gulf. These are our 5 big partners. But when I look at Latin America, I think, already we are seeing last year our collective trade with Latin America was a little bit less than $50 billion. So if I do think that if there's greater focus, more push, more engagement, more contacts, more meetings like this, more companies like what we heard from, I think it's very much possible that we could really try and make Latin America, also for India, a very big business hub. But I want also to talk to you a little bit about what's happening in India and really where I see our relationship going. We have in the past not just trade but some business. I must say by the way, our trade figures were a little bit higher than the Brazilian figures. But the investment is a really tricky one because often the routing of the investment is very misleading. So you actually think that Dutch Antilles is a huge economy and Singapore is enormous and Cyprus is very big and Liechtenstein is even bigger. So I think the real figures are substantively higher. But having said that, I recognize that there's a lot that we can do. But I was pleased even as I was passing through on my way to Asuncion day before yesterday, I had a chance to meet some of the Indian companies here. You were good enough to be there as well. And whether it is power transmission, whether it is IT, whether it is pharmaceuticals, agrochemicals, automobiles, two-wheelers. We have today good Indian companies present in Brazil. Our challenge from the Indian end obviously is to grow that, to widen that footprint, to deepen it, and to encourage other sectors and other companies to come. But we don't, I think, either of us anymore think of economy just being exports. I mean, we recognize the value, the link between investment and trade, between technology and investment, between creation today, invention, the fact that for me, I think when you spoke about an R&D center in India, that is also for me a statement of an opportunity. That when I look at India's USPs, one thing which we can offer companies who are prepared to produce in India is also to create in India and to invent in India. The message which I will be taking to Brasilia this evening and my meetings tomorrow, really to the government, is that our responsibility is to create the the enabling environment, the inspiration, the support to grow a business, because of course eventually business has to be done by businessmen. Now, a few words about India itself. Like everybody else in the world, we also went through a very difficult time during COVID. In fact, some of our responses were the most radical. We had a complete lockdown of the economy in 2020, of the society in 2020. But having said that, we used that period to respond to COVID in a very fiscally responsible manner. That is, with limited resources, where to put those resources, where to get the best results for those resources was something which we spent a lot of time. And in a sense, we turned crisis into opportunity. That during this period, one of the big concerns we had was that because of the lockdown, a lot of people lost their jobs, that they would not have enough to eat. So we created in this COVID period an enormous social safety net. Social safety net which even today gives food support to 800 million people, which directly puts money into the bank accounts of 400 million people, which is in terms of health coverage today directly covers 150 million people. And all this has happened really in the last 2.5 years during COVID, mainly because prior to that we had created the digital backbone which was ready to be used, and we never expected that a crisis would compel us to use it, but it did. So to our own, in a sense, I would say, astonishment, we find today that we have set up a system which is actually today a huge foundation of social stability in India. But it's also a period where we revisited a lot of our policies. I mean, the COVID period, people think in COVID everybody went home and stayed home. Actually, a lot of people went home and did a lot of work. And it was a time when, through interactions, through meetings, through confabulations, we had the time to reflect on what we could do better. And as an example, before COVID, we had some serious banking challenges. We used this period to actually clean up the banks. We had very major export challenges. We used this period to actually create support structures for our small and medium industries and to fashion a production-linked incentive in 14 different sectors, so that any new capacity which was created in India, any new manufacturing capacity that was created in India, in those sectors would be eligible for incentive. including President in Textiles. So the point I wish to make is we have really come out of this period much more competitive as an economy. In fact, the first year, our financial year starts in April and ends in March. So March 2022 was the first post-COVID year, in a way we could say. And our export performance has been the strongest ever in our history. So we haven't just recovered the pre-COVID situation. We've actually ramped up beyond where we are. And even in Brazil, I think you had what, about a 60%? 63% increase in our exports. So the opportunity which I kind of described to you is that today, under Prime Minister Modi, we are very committed to making it easier to do business. We are making it easier to invest, easier to actually, as I said, co-create and co-invent. There is a big push for skilling, for startups, for funding startups. In fact, we have a very surprising number of unicorns we have been able to create. For 100 unicorns, of which 44 were created last year alone. So it is very much a kind of a economy today on the move, on the rebound after COVID, which is sort of ready to engage much more with the world. And part of the reason I am here is to give a clear message, because from Brazil, I'm going to Argentina as well. And I hope to come back for some further visits in the coming weeks, is to really send a message in this region that we don't think today we are that far away. We don't think distance is an obstacle to doing business. In fact, if I were to give two examples, because of the Ukraine crisis, obviously everybody is having a big energy challenge. Now we have actually ramped up our energy investment. We are going to be investing additional $1.6 billion in Brazil in an ongoing petroleum investment. But we are also procuring more. We are buying from Guyana. We are hoping to buy more from Mexico and from Brazil. So even in response, and similarly, if I were to look at another crisis we had, the other oil, not the fuel oil, but the cooking oil. We in India, we are huge consumers of edible oil. And when the Ukraine conflict happened, one of our biggest sources got cut off. Now, the substitute source has actually come from Latin America. It is today Brazil, is the Mercosur countries, Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, which are actually filling the gap which has been created by the shortage of and the disruption of existing supplies. So I cite those to you as examples other than the ones the three companies presented, that it could be the agro business, it could be the energy business, and again, I can tell you your passion for ethanol was only matched by that of my Prime Minister. So when he starts talking about ethanol, I think even you would be impressed, because again, we see this very much both as a solution to climate action challenges, as well as for self-sufficiency. I think that was a very powerful point he made, that this 6 months of this year has actually shown us all who do not have petroleum resources of the challenges of relying on the volatility of the market. In that sense, what biofuels do, because you control much more of the production environment, really is it gives you that additional stability in your economy. So, as I said, we are today looking for new investments in automobiles, in auto components, aviation, chemicals, electronic systems. We are embarking on a big semiconductor program to which would extend from creating a fab to displays and chip making. We do think that that would be an important contribution to the global economy, but it will also secure our own auto industry in a substantial way. And obviously, we are looking at renewables, pharmaceuticals. One policy which should be of interest to Brazilian companies is drone. We've done a big drone promotion policy. So that too has opened up in the last 2 or 3 years a segment which for us, frankly, didn't exist at all in any meaningful way. Now, we do know that in the past we've had our challenges. We are not in denial of them. One of the important challenges we've always had is the logistics, the infrastructure. So that today is, again, very much a target of change. There is a very big program in our language, we call it Gati Shakti. It's a kind of a national master plan for connectivity. So, in fact, if any of you visit India today, a common sight you will see, whichever town you go to, or if you're moving from one place to another, you will see something being built. There is new roads being built, new rail being built, the new airports being built, so that it is in that sense very much today new infrastructure, not just a digital infrastructure, because that too is something where we are trying to cover to ensure that every local habitation, we have 250,000 of them, would be connected by optical fiber network. But the physical infrastructure is also something, so that the cost of logistics for those who do business in India, that is something that we are trying to bring down. I would say at this time, given the picture that I paint to you, we are very interested in how we can work with other partner countries. Some of it is to improve existing arrangements. We have a preferential trade agreement, I think a very, very narrow one with Mercosur. Clearly, there is interest in expanding it. Again, we do not necessarily want to get into a full-fledged, very long-term negotiation. We are looking to see whether there are some immediate areas of interest to either side on which we can expand that preferential trade agreement to our mutual advantage. We ourselves we've just done an FTA with Australia and one with the UAE. We are negotiating with EU. Of course, we know Mercosur has done that. The one which is more likely to happen right now is the one with UK. That's more advanced. I would say, I mean, certainly the target is to see if we can get it done by the end of this year. So that's the broad picture which I wanted to present. It is really a picture where, in a sense, I wanted to convey the energies and the dynamism in the Indian economy, the interest in reaching out to regions which have not, where we have not always been historically strong, but also to work with countries in areas which may be new. And certainly today, I think digital, health, I would say green growth, infrastructure, and there is a very strong commitment to increasing the manufacturing component of the Indian economy. So these are really very strong areas. We'd be very interested in finding Brazilian companies to partner with us. And on our side, as I said, that we are very keen to move forward as well. I had one or two specific comments from the presentations which were made. One, I think with Weg, I noted the reference to the R&D center. I think that's a very important point because a lot of big multinational companies today are setting up R&D centers in India. On the defense side for the Embraer, we have a policy what we call Make in India. We encourage foreign companies to come and set up shops and find ways by which we make it worth your while to do that. Where civil aviation is concerned, I just want to flag your attention that even during this COVID period, we actually privatized our largest national airline. So today, almost the entire civil aviation sector is private. So it is something, therefore, it's important, I think, for Brazilian business, and I would say even for FIESP, to engage the Indian private sector more, because in many of the areas of your interest, they are really the people who are directly controlling that. So these were some of the comments. Once again, it's really been a great pleasure to meet all of you, and I hope that my remarks have enthused you into perhaps paying greater business attention to it.